Can you please tell us a little about yourself?
My name is Spencer Scruggs. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the director of the Center for Accessible Education at UCLA. I've been working in disability services in higher education for over a decade now. I often find myself in the midst of research and scholarly work, very much consider myself a scholar practitioner. So a lot of my areas of research revolve around disability identity, um, uh, student success for disabled students, and how institutions are supporting disabled students towards outcomes such as graduation, retention, things of that nature. And what got me interested, I think, was my practical work, seeing so many students that we work with on a regular basis not being supported in a way that our institutions needed to support them.
Now, can you please tell us about UCLA and the surrounding community?
So we here at UCLA, we have about um, 48,000 students, if I remember right. And of those students, of those 48,000 students, we have about 5,000 that are registered with our office. Um, Around us here at UCLA, we're on the west side of LA, and so we have wonderful little communities around us, including Westwood. And UCLA is really grounded in Westwood and is a major community partner, not only just in Westwood, but across the city, really supporting so many different public interests around Los Angeles.
What can you share about your programs to support neurodivergent students at UCLA?
So, looking at our program, we have sort of two different functions. Our first program is the Bruin Neurodiversity Collective, or the BNC, and the BNC is more of the student-facing part of the program. It's intended to support our creative community for our neurodivergent students, and particularly our students on the autism spectrum. It's housed in our Bruin Resource Center with support from a variety of different individuals across campus, including our office. It was spurred from student involvement, specifically looking at students that were passionate about creating spaces and environments in which neurodivergent students here at UCLA could thrive, not just exist, not just survive, not just kind of move through, but having those students be catalyst for change on campus when it came to creating neurodivergent or neuro-inclusive spacing. Um, and then we have our second component, which is what we call the net. Here at UCLA, many of our programs and the institution at itself can be very decentralized. It's difficult to figure out where are the offices that really work closely with these students, and that have a philosophy or approach that's really important to them. So our NET, which is our neurodiversity empowerment team, this group is a collective of individuals, professionals across campus, from our counseling and psychological services clinic to our RISE, which is resiliency and student um, education office that does a lot of like resiliency programming, to our office, to the Bruin Resource Center that houses the BNC. All of these units come together. Residence Life is there. All these units come together on a regular basis to discuss uh, programming, support for our neurodivergent community, looking at the gaps on where different things are uh, leading our neurodivergent students to fall through the cracks, if you will. And how can we be much more collaborative to make sure that we're supporting that student population.
How large are the programs, and what does the application process entail?
So our BNC in its infancy stages, so it's just growing now. The program has a handful of students, the most maybe 20 or so students. It's growing. They have an advisor in our office and also in the Bruin Resource Center. It is open for any student. So any student that identifies as neurodivergent, they are welcome to join this program. And the reason we did that in particular was because we didn't want students to feel like they had to be registered with our office, the Disability Resources Office, to qualify. So we openly advertise it as a resource on campus, particularly during admission season. We share more information with different agencies across the city, different schools that have students that transfer into UCLA. And so there's a lot of work at the admissions level to make sure that these students are getting connected with this resource once they decide to attend. And also we identify students that might be a good fit for the program through various other channels, such as our BIT team, our behavioral intervention team, where we're noticing there might be a student that's having some challenges connecting with the community and may need some more one-on-one direct support. So there isn't really an application process. It's more of kind of directly connecting with the BNC and thinking of it more as like a resource center or a resource hub for neurodivergent students than more of a kind of direct program, if you will. The goal is to grow it into a more direct program that maybe students would apply into with some significant structure. So right now, it's open to students that identify as neurodivergent. So students with ADHD, learning disabilities, on the autism spectrum, mostly those three kind of populations of students. And in that way, I think there's some broader, more overarching kind of support levels that we can offer. But we often are finding that the program isn't necessarily going to be very specific to students that are on the autism spectrum or that identify as autistic.
Can you tell us more about the specific areas of support?
So when the BNC first started, it was mostly geared toward social activities, social skills, and also creating a space for, in some ways, for students to have real life practice around self-advocacy. The idea was that even though there was staff support for it, it's student run and student guided. We want students to be able to feel like they're empowered to make the decisions on what they particularly need as a student population, what they're feeling like that, they need as support. Now, naturally, this is challenging because I think especially for this population of students, sometimes that type of autonomy and decision making can be really, really difficult. And so that's where we have staff support to help them make those decisions, to help them with programming, and to connect with different entities to collaborate on programming across campus. It's mostly been geared towards social support with NET team, the Neurodiversity Empowerment team. That team, I think, then has kind of handled some of the other elements of this, such as, when those students are having some challenges with roommates, or when there are kind of mental health concerns that are at play. That team kind of also serves as a routing team, if you will, to make sure that we are bringing up these students that may particularly be on different radars, making sure that those students are getting connected with counseling, with our behavioral intervention team, our crisis response team. We also have worked closely with our career center to try to build out a series of resources for those students. And so we've been able to offer workshops for those students on interviewing and um, engaging in internships and what does that look like when you're on the autism spectrum or you experience autism in those impacts of your autism in those spaces? How can we support that student in that in that realm? So that's been some of that element as well. Traditionally, sort of what's been part of phase two and that we're now somewhat moving into are the elements of the academic support. And so we're noticing, for the most part, especially at a place like UCLA, often our students are excelling, but there is a group of some of our students that are not excelling as well, or they have challenges with information processing or executive functioning. And so what we've noticed is that there's a need for academic and to a certain extent other skills kind of coaching. And our traditional method up until now has been to refer out to the community because we really haven't had that capacity to manage this. But we're actually now starting to grow out our coaching team that's under my office, the Center for Accessible Education or Disability Services Office. And the idea is that this would again be a separate service technically from the BNC, but that the neurodiversity empowerment team that's overseeing all of these different elements would ensure that the students are getting connected with that service. So we're starting off with one coach. We're looking to hire peer navigators that again will provide that peer level support for those students as well, and ideally would be students that maybe are heavily involved in BNC and have that experience of navigating challenges around communication or discussing things with their instructors or going to office hours and how do you manage that? All of those things, the idea is to build out a coaching program that will, one, not cost students anything. So that's one of the big goals of mine is I want to make sure that, students are not paying out of pocket for these services when they're coming to UCLA. And to me, it's really important that they have access to these particular things. If they absolutely need them and at no cost as a student.
Any examples of UCLA students who really thrive with the support of the neurodiversity program?
One who actually helped us to start the program that has just really blossomed, and he's had an opportunity to intern with the Stanford Neurodiversity Project. He's had an opportunity to get all of these internships and opportunities outside of UCLA because of the support that he got through the program and or the BNC and some of the initiative that he took. I think he was really passionate about this project. The goal of what we're doing is to bring the passion and purpose, help our students find their purpose. And so for this one particular student that I have in mind, he's just really had an opportunity to blossom under the support and the direct one-on-one connections that he's made with so many different supportive staff members. And I think that's the magic of the program, especially at a place like UCLA. Sometimes it's challenging to, get that level of support, but particularly with this population, it's needed. And so when we intentionally direct services in a way to those students and structure them around the students, those students like Ryan and whatnot, just they really start to just go, and you can see them growing and really finding their purpose and having so much success.
Big thanks to Spencer and to UCLA. Please subscribe to Inclusive Academia.